Okay, we're back. I want to show you how to do a cumulative frequency for this discrete data of number of people living in a household. I'll show you a cumulative frequency histogram fairly quickly, and then we'll move on to categorical data and how to count categorical data, data that's actually grouped and within a particular range. So pretty high octane sort of calculation with Excel, but fairly easy once you get the hang of it. Okay, so cumulative frequency. Remember, cumulative frequency for 1 would be the values that are 1 or less. Now 1 is the lowest value, so the values that are 1 or less is just going to be this frequency of 1. So I'm just going to go equals and put this cell in here. So pretty boring. But to do the frequency, cumulative frequency for 2, that's going to be the number of values in 2 and the number of values in 1. So in essence, it's going to be this cell plus this cell. And you could put in a formula, equals, and then say this cell plus this cell if you wanted to. And it works. Okay, but then you'd have to do it and then add more and more things. And if you had, I don't know, 20 different values, it would get pretty onerous after a while. But you could do that. You could put in a formula and go equals and say I want to go that guy plus the value below it plus the value below it, and then just press enter. Okay. But there is another way to do it. And the other way to do it I'll show you in this particular category here. So you could go equals, and then really all of these values, 4, 0, and 1 that are above the 4. So 4, there's 9 of them. But remember, cumulative frequency for 4 is 9, sorry, the number 4 and below. So that would be 9 people for number 4, plus 4 people for number 3, 0 for number 2, and 1 for number 1. So what we can do is we can take this 9, the new part, okay, that's just the 4s, and then add the 3s and the 2s and the 1s. Or what we could do is take what the add of the 3s and the 2s and the 1s is, which of course is the cumulative frequency for 3, because the cumulative frequency for 3 is 4 plus 0 plus 1. So I could take the 9 and add all of these guys in one number, which is the cumulative frequency of the value above it. Okay, press enter in there, and then I could do it again. Take this new value, all the 5s, there's 2 5s, and then rather than taking this and this and this and this above it, I take the 2 and the 14, which is all of these numbers above it, and I just add it a little bit more quickly. The other nice thing about that is you could actually drag that formula. I'm going to drag it down for the last one, and it gets all the way to 20, which is what it should do, because for the highest value, it should include all of the values, all those values at 6, and then everything, all the values at 6, and then everything below it. Okay, so that's a cumulative frequency. We don't do a sum for that because it doesn't really have any meaning. Okay, what I'm going to do now is a bar graph pretty quick. So again, what I do is I select my x. Now what you'll notice here for the x values, it doesn't say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, even though they're all numbers. Because if I took this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then held down the key, and then picked my cumulative frequency, it would see it as a set of numbers versus a set of numbers and either put in a scatter plot or 2 bars that are side by side. I don't want to do that. Okay, I want to have this as an actual bottom axis, a label. Okay, so what I do is I put a little apostrophe there. That says it's actually a word. As soon as you include a character that's not a number, it sees it as a word or a label. It doesn't see it as a number. So by doing that, you're still going to be able to have a single variable graph. So I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, highlight my X, hold down my command key if I have a Mac, or my control key if I have a PC, and then I highlight the Y or the actual cumulative frequencies. Insert, bar graph, boom, there it is. Oops, gotta make it a little smaller so we can see the darn thing. Okay, and then for quick layout, add in the one that you like the best, or add them all in individually. In this case, I like this one because it's got everything that I want. You put in a nice title. Okay, so when you put in your title again, it's going to be cumulative frequency, okay, or showing the distribution of the number of people living in a household for Mr. Henley's data management class 2012. And I've probably made a bunch of typos, but I don't care. You can go ahead and fix those, of course, if you want to be a stickler for details. For here, of course, this is going to be number of people in household. And here it's going to be, and you really need to label this one cumulative frequency. Because it's a very unusual stat. You'll notice, of course, that it starts low and goes up, 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 and no decreasing as we go down. So it's an increasing slope. Okay, what the pattern shows is a little bit different. I also got this thing here, series here. I can get rid of that. Boom, there's my graph, looking beautiful. And I can take this and just put it over here for now. And I'll space it out for you guys so that you can see all the graphs when I save this file and you can have a look at it. Okay, so that's a cumulative frequency distribution or bar graph for discrete data. And again, discrete data, we've got all of the bars are separated. Okay, but when we go to categorical data, like for example these heights, and this is where we get the data from, we go all the way over to here. These are all our heights. It goes from F2 all the way down to, can't quite see it, F21. That's the data that we're going to be using. I got to sort of make it a little bit less magnified just so we can see this for the very first calculation that we're doing. We want to be able to see all the data. We're going to do a frequency for these groupings. So let's go down a little bit and look at these groupings. Okay, first of all, we group this data because the frequency for each of the individual values would be too small. There'd be a lot of zeros, so it's natural to group data. And we generally do tend to group continuous data very often, even categorical or even discrete data a fair bit. But really grouping, continuous data is very, very common. So here we're doing a grouping. One thing you'll notice for the groupings is it goes from 135 to 139.5 to 149.5, 149.5 to 159.5, 159.5 to 169.5. So between each grouping that we have here, there are no spaces. Okay, just like there are no spaces between the numbers. All numbers are allowed for continuous data, for heights. Okay, so as a result, we don't want to have any spaces between these intervals. Okay, you also don't want to have any of your data values lie into groupings, one interval and another interval. So if I create values like these 0.5s, it creates this arbitrary barrier that no value of data that I've measured can lie on. And as luck would have it, I do have a couple of 0.5s, but one's a 146.5 and one's a 167.5. So I can use this strategy and still be okay. All right? So there we go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate the frequency. In order to do the frequency for this, it's a little bit fancier. So I'm going to scroll up so we can see the data set because we need our data range. And I'm going to calculate the frequency for this small grouping right here. Okay? So let me just go out one more. There we go. This small grouping right here, 139.5 and 149.5. Now, if you remember what we used is we used the function and we used COUNTIF. Except in this case, we actually have a range of values that we want, not a particular value. We use count if we want a specific value. But because we want it to be between this and this, we have to use COUNTIF-S, almost like plural COUNTIFs. Okay? And so then we go ahead and we use COUNTIF-S or COUNTIFs, and then we insert the function. Okay? And as always, it says a criteria range. Range is my data range. So you highlight your data range, all my heights. Okay, you're going to see it's F2 to F21. This is where I'm going to make myself useful and actually copy that. So I don't have to go back and highlight this data set all the time, unless you enjoy doing it, in which case you can, but in this case I don't. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to give the criteria, the condition. So when I click here, I want to give the criteria, and the criteria has to fit in this range. So what I want are numbers that are greater than 139.5, the bottom part of my range, so above that, okay? But I also want it to be below the 149.5, the lower part of my range. So I kind of put an COUNTIF once, and then what I do is I go plus, and then I do it again, okay? So again, it's a data range again, so I want to use the same data range, F2 to F21. I had that copied so then I can paste it in there. And then of course I have to do a criteria that goes along with that. So we have a data range and a criteria a data range, and a criteria. The last criteria is going to be less than 149.5. That's going to put it into my grouping between 139.5 and 149.5. Okay, press enter. Done, and you'll have a number all the way over here. I know it's really small, it's the number 1. Okay, I'm going to close this, and then I'm going to focus in on this grouping so we can see it a little bit more carefully. Okay, see our grouping a bit more carefully and then understand what we're doing a little bit more clearly. Okay? So again, I'm going to repeat the process, but for this category here, I want it between 149.5 and 159.5. So what do? Same thing as usual. I'm in the cell that I want to write down the value for the frequency. I press the function. I go to count. Now there's COUNTIFS. Remember, you want to use COUNTIFS, plural. Okay, insert that function. You take your data range. Remember, we still have that copied, so we can paste it again. You put the criteria. Okay, we know it's got to be greater than 149.5. Okay, and we got to put in our data set again and do another COUNTIF with 2 criteria. Greater than 149.5 and then less than 159.5. Okay? You press enter. Now, I'm going to pause for a second. We got our value of 2. I'm going to pause for a second and let you guys have some time to pause so you can maybe have a look at this, maybe write it down somewhere or take a picture with your phone or whatever. Okay, and now we'll move on, okay? Because when you see it in sentence form, it's not as easy. Up here, it's a little bit more complicated. Okay, so you go done. I'm going to get rid of that. Then I'm going to do it from scratch here one more time. Then after that, I'll complete them all behind the scenes, and we'll come back and we can do graphs and things like that. So again, fx, COUNTIFS, insert your function. Again, you've got that data range copied, so you paste it. You put in your either greater than or less than. You actually don't have to do it in a specific order, but here I go greater than, and it's for this grouping, so 159.5. Okay, and then I got to do another sort of criterion because it's between 2 values. So again, I plug in my data set. It's a range, so it's a data set. And then I put in, well, not only does it have to be greater than 159.5, it has to be less than 169.5. So I go less than 169.5, press enter, done, and you can see that there are 6 of them there. Let me just get rid of this. Well, I'll leave the menu there. But you can see that there's 6 of them there. I'm going to fill out the rest of these. There's faster ways to do it. I don't want to get there the faster ways because it's a bit more complicated and it depends on what you're ready for. So we'll finish this all off and then we'll actually start doing some other stats. Talk to you in a bit. Bye-bye.